How can technology evolve for the Web3 era? Well, today I want to explore this question with the CEO and founder of EtherMail, who is at the forefront of creating a decentralized email platform that promises to reshape how we communicate in a blockchain-driven world. His name is Shant. He's waiting for us in Barcelona today. And with a vision that brings together the anonymous communication and personalized messaging, EtherMail is building a next generation of email tailored for Web3. But what led Shant and his co-founder to create a solution aimed at transforming how we all interact, but in a decentralized space? And more importantly, how does EtherMail plan to bridge the gap between the familiarity of Web2 email and the forward-thinking needs of Web3 users? Today, we're going to explore the challenges and innovations EtherMail is addressing, including their mission to deliver a more secure, tokenized email experience, while also tackling issues like spam overload, consensual marketing, and user anonymity. And we'll also discuss the significance of securing backing from some pretty big names out there like Tim Draper, and how support like this fuels EtherMail's vision. So, what lies ahead for email communication in a decentralized internet? And how do EtherMail plan to shape that future and bridge the worlds of Web 2 and Web 3? Well, enough for me. Let's get today's guest on and find out more. So, a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you just tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, everyone. I'm Shant, CEO and founder of EtherMail. I've been working on EtherMail for the last 2 years and a half, something like that. Basically making a decentralized email solution that allows people to communicate anonymously via the blockchain.
Well, I'm so glad you joined me on the podcast today. I connected with your founder on here a few years back, and it's great to see the progress that you've made here since our last conversation. But for listeners that are maybe unfamiliar with your platform, can you just share that origin story with me and what prompted you to launch EtherMail?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day with my co-founder, Gary, we were involved in the blockchain space, doing some NFTs, participating with some companies that were doing it and helping them execute their visions. And at one point really saw that there was a communication issue because everything's running on Telegram, on Discords, Twitters. And we saw like, oh, wow, this is hectic. And if someone bought your NFT and then they resold it, and then the groups had very bad communication, basically, it would just get reduced to like wet moon. So it was large volumes of messages, but very little value, you could say. And so we set out to try and improve that. And one of the ways that we thought was the best way to do it was actually email, because, you know, it's rich in content, it's personalized, and you don't get all this extra noise and weird signaling, FOMOs and BUD. And so you get the message directly from the company that's intending to talk to you. And so we really set out to do that and deliver an improved experience that is for the new internet, which is the Web3 experience. So upgrading that old protocol to a new era. And that's what we set out to do.
And several years on since that last conversation, we're talking about this stuff. The Web3 landscape continues to evolve, and there's so many great things happening in this space. But what is it you feel is needed to drive that mass adoption? It's something we keep coming back to, but how do we drive that mass adoption, and how are you contributing to this effort, not just to EtherMail, but for that entire Web3 landscape too?
Of course. So we sort of see it in a way such as the printing press, the fax, the mobile phone. Communication is something that is needed in every industry to accelerate its growth. And so let's say that the whole Web3 space has not been very good at having its mechanism for growth via communication. And once a proper channel is used and adopted, then the growth accelerates over the coming years. That's been proven all the time with the printing press, as we mentioned, and other technologies. And so the first thing we strive to do is to enable this anonymous communication, because as tokens or NFTs change hands and the people are anonymous, maybe they're still interested, maybe they're not. All of this is something that needs to be solved, because when you have an email address in a normal Web2 or a phone number and someone unsubscribes, okay, but it's the end of the story. But in this case, there's also changing of hands, the interested assets. And so it becomes it's a much more complicated story. So we set up to facilitate this. And then the other part is to encourage even more adoption. There needs to be things that are much more familiar to the Web2 industry, because creating something complex, like connecting a wallet and signing with this hardware wallet or this other thing, like it probably scares a lot of Web2 people, and reducing that barrier to entry with a more familiar user experience is probably very important. And so EtherMail is setting out to do that via an email plan that works and functions and feels kind of like a Gmail. And that can pretty much be a good way of enticing users to come in. While we can facilitate, let's say, the user experience, we can improve that, right? We can improve the communication mechanism and all of these things. I think it's really up to the Web3 communities that are emerging to make the killer use cases beyond that, right? So just like maybe Hotmail existed or Gmail existed, those are great use cases within themselves. But eventually something else had to come out, or a series of other solutions had to come out, which then Gmail, Hotmail, and all these other solutions sort of facilitated, whether it was a killer, unique e-commerce like Amazon that facilitated things, and then you get your receipts via email, or then you had a social media, but you logged in with your email, et cetera, et cetera. Email is just one component which we facilitate, but eventually other applications need to come out, emerge, that add to this utility of this baseline of communication.
Fantastic. And before you came on the podcast, I was just getting back up to speed with some of the news surrounding EtherMail since we last spoke. And one of the things that stood out to me was you've secured financial backing from some big investment heavyweights out there. One in particular stood out, Tim Draper. But can you expand on that? And how significant is that seal of approval for you and your company?
Yeah. So for us, it was a real, let's say, statement of confidence, I think you could say, that there is something to be done, is the first one. And the second one is not only is there something to be done in the industry or what we're working on, but the second one is the confidence that we can be the project that solves the fundamental issue, right? Just kind of like as these companies have been invested in, like Tesla and SpaceX and other things of big name, are just a testament to know when he believes in something, they can go on to be the next big thing. And so for us, it's a confidence boost, you could say, a belief that there's something to be done and that we can maybe solve the problem.
And also, just around the corner, our inboxes in the Web2 world are going to be bombarded with Black Friday and Cyber Monday emails. Anyone we bought one item from 6 years ago is still going to be bombarding our inboxes. And I think this is a great moment to maybe introduce the value that you're offering at EtherMail and that mission to introduce this new framework for email economics and also consensual marketing. Can you just expand on that mission and what it means for listeners?
Absolutely. So for us, one of the biggest things that we set out to do was to make sure that EtherMail can be as secure of a communication channel as possible while maintaining the benefits of existing email. And one of those is very much e-commerce newsletters or offerings that can give you promo discounts, information on new things that are happening, well, via newsletters, and all of this, right, has a lot of value. However, there are situations where companies can abuse this, and then you start considering what would be legitimate emails just because they start accumulating. So many start accumulating that you start considering it spam, even though it's not spam, right? And because of the sheer volume of what you have to go through and read, and then you just have this 100,000 emails unread. So the way we set out to solve this is actually that we have consensual marketing. And consensual marketing doesn't just apply to EtherMail, in my belief. It applies to many other industries, including browsers that, like Brave, that offers an ad blocker, but you can consent into receiving certain types of advertisements. And this goes beyond just these channels, right? It can be on many different mediums. And so the idea behind it really, for me, is that you can get a limited dose of relevant advertisement in which, in our case, you get tokens for the invasion of your personal inbox, which means if I'm investing time into seeing something, whether I'm interested, not interested, it's relevant, I buy or not, my time has some value. And that is kind of the thought experiment, the framework in which we're operating, where people's time, whether from anywhere, is valuable, and in some way, shape, or form, they should receive some sort of reward.
And another thing I noticed when playing catch up was EtherMail also recently launched your native utility token, EMT, which plays a key role in EtherMail's advertising platform. But again, for people listening, hearing about both of these things for the very first time, could you just expand on that and maybe explain the link between the two there?
Yes. So EMT, as you mentioned, just launched June 12th, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're really happy about that because it allows us to fulfill our promise and our vision to the users that have been with us. And it shows that we were really serious about this consensual marketing. And basically, this is when mentioning that we have to somehow reward users for their time. EMT allows us to do this. And the vehicle in which, and the mechanism in which it is done is that advertisers, in order to send this consensual marketing that users have opted into to receive one a day, for example, one email a day, for example, then what can happen is then the company that wants to do some advertisement needs to ensure that they have some of these EMT in order to send it through to the user, the email, and the email will be accompanied by said token or the amounts that are established by the market or the people that are sent their set. And so this helps us fulfill that vision of consensual marketing, and it's how it's done through our advertisement platform. So our advertisement platform essentially just allows companies to send relevant content, marketing-wise, to a open audience that is interested in receiving that type of content in exchange for some of these topics.
And another thing that really stood out was EtherMail's email as a wallet solution, which also enables users to create a non-custodial wallet through Gmail or their existing Apple accounts in just under 1 minute. Again, sounds incredibly forward-thinking. How integral is this in your mission to maybe bridging the gap between the Web 2 and Web 3 worlds?
So we really want Web 2 users to feel at home as we start off the discussion, and email really feels at home right now. It typically is complicated to create a wallet, whether you have to install some extent or you have to install a third-party application. And so the mechanism in which you can also lose these private keys, which then has a recovery, because a wallet kind of works like an identity, and also, for lack of a better word, a bank account or a piggy bank based on the tokens, all of this, right? And so because it has this dual nature of identity and asset management, the fundamental problem is that it's scary and you can lose your seed phrase very easily and all of this. So for us to minimize that concern for Web2 users, really, we facilitate the login with something that they know that they feel like, okay, I'm never going to lose my Google account because it's my phone, it's linked up to my secondary backup account, whatever mechanism they've chosen, right? And they're like, I'm never going to lose access to it. So they can log into EtherMail through a seamless experience, which then creates the wallet for them. And then they don't have to really worry about that complicated third-party extension, application, seed phrase, and it minimizes all of this. And by minimizing it, then we can increase the user adoption. And the whole goal, right, is not 100% necessarily to try and replace the Google inbox, but it's to make sure that users have a place where they feel comfortable, that they're not associating their personal information, that they're not at risk of losing their assets or things like that. And so this mechanism is very core to that.
And a question I've got to ask, based on your experience as a Web3 founder, for anybody listening that's interested in joining this world, it's a huge movement. Is there any piece of advice that you'd offer to any aspiring entrepreneur looking to maybe segue into the Web3 space? I would imagine there's more and more people thinking about doing this. A lot of people make mistakes. Is there any advice you would offer around that? Anyone wanting to follow in your footsteps?
It's a lot of fun, that it is. But besides being fun, it is very challenging. What seems simple and trivial in, let's say, the Web2 world, in Web3 has added complexity because of the anonymous nature, the encryption. But as time does go on, things will be simplified, and that's the goal. Additionally, I think that community management is super important, but it is not to be underestimated. And finally, that if you are getting involved in, let's say, community building and early growth, is that the community members can definitely encourage you, but there are, and they can boost you and they can do all these positive things, but there can be some malicious actors that can, if you're not prepared, single-handedly drive your business in the incorrect direction by you doing certain sophisticated types of attacks. And this can be very time-consuming, difficult. So the good comes with the bad, but these are all problems to be solved, and it's great.
Love it. And you did say the Web3 space is a lot of fun. So building on that, I always ask my guests to leave everyone listening with a song we can add to our Spotify playlist that you'd recommend. Guilty pleasures are allowed. We've got all kinds of crazy things on there. Or a book that you'd recommend that we can add to our Amazon wish list. All I'm going to ask is, what would you like to leave everyone listening with and why?
Okay, so I think I'm going to pick a song. It's one that I've been listening to quite a bit lately, which is Life is Beautiful by Tim McMorris. It's also a fun one. So I think both, it fits very well with what we just actually concluded with. It's a fun one.
Oh, I've not heard that. I'm going to be adding that straight to our Spotify playlist. I'll be checking that out in a moment as well. And for anyone listening, just want to find out a little bit more information about EtherMail, maybe join your community or just learn a little bit more about it and how they can get involved. Where would you like to point everyone?
So anyone can find us on our X or on our Telegram. We have pretty active communication mechanisms there, but we do believe that the best is signing up to EtherMail directly and by proxy then becoming part of our newsletter.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. As I said, we spoke to your founder a few years ago and had a great conversation. And one of the things that I've always loved about what you're doing here is this mission to bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, increase adoption in the space. Love what you're doing. Love to get you back on next year, see how things are evolving. But more than anything, just thanks for keeping me up to speed with what you're doing. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Neil.
So as we've heard from Shant today, EtherMail's work goes beyond just building a decentralized email solution. It's about creating a foundation for communication in Web3 space. And their approach to anonymous messaging, consensual marketing, and bridging Web 2 and Web 3 has the potential to accelerate the adoption of blockchain technologies in a very real way. Whether it be simplifying user experiences or rewarding people for their time, EtherMail seems to be introducing new dynamics into a well-established communication system. So the question remains, as blockchain continues to grow, how will traditional services evolve? And what role will platforms like EtherMail play in redefining these spaces? Whether you're intrigued by decentralized communication or simply excited about the future of Web3, I would advise that you check out EtherMail because they're continuously innovating. It's certainly a journey that I've been following very closely and will continue to. Are you ready to kick off 2025 with a brand new podcast? Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, budding creator, or business leader with an objective to deliver a podcast in 2025, I've got 3 tailored options that will help you launch your podcast with minimal fuss. Option 1, let's keep it simple. You record an episode, I'll handle everything else. For $2,000, I will edit, produce, and publish a season of 12 episodes on all major platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. One of the most common emails I get is, Neil, I want to launch a podcast, but I haven't got time. So that's why every year I offer my services every November to provide a hassle-free to get your podcast up and running. So if you or your business are interested in getting a podcast live and you want to work directly with me, visit my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or also please send me a DM on any social platform such as LinkedIn, X or Instagram. I'm just at Neil C. Hughes on every single platform. But option 2, if you're looking for a comprehensive support package, my friends at aipodcast.ing, they've got you covered too, because they also include website management, audience engagement. They'll take care of every single detail of podcasting. Plus, you get 25% off your first month of services with them if you enter the code Neil C. Hughes. Great way to start strong. finally, option 3. If you're the kind of person that would prefer to go alone, I've got something for you too. Libsyn, where I host this podcast, they're offering up to 2 months of free hosting if you use the promo code TBW. And the way to get the most out of that, if you were to sign up on November the 1st or November the 2nd, you could maximise that free trial because you won't pay a thing till January the 1st, 2025. So whether you want full support, a little help, or handle it all yourself, 2025 is the year to make your podcast dream a reality. No more excuses. There's many options there for you to choose from. Let's get started today. So today was Web3 and email. What we're going to talk about tomorrow? Well, I'm not going to reveal any spoilers. Tune in, same time, same place tomorrow. I've got another guest lined up. But hopefully you will all join me again then. Well, bye for now.